Skits on TikTok Shop, they are one of the most underrated ways to make money. And I know what you're thinking, oh, but that involves another person. Oh, but that takes a lot of work. I don't have anybody to do it with me. If you put an ounce of effort into skits and just finding someone, right? Even if you have to pay them a set amount, they can be behind the camera and you can be in front of the camera. Two, most of the people that do skits, they are really bad. They are just optimizing for views and not for conversion. So in this video, I'm gonna explain kind of how you should be structuring your skits and most importantly, why they even work in the first place. Because a common misconception that people have is, oh, skits don't convert, but I would argue it's the exact opposite. On my grandma's account specifically, we do skits all the time, and that's actually probably the best style of content that we do that converts the best across the board, even from talking head, all these other styles of content, but consistently that converts really well for our actual skits. A lot of times when people start skits, from the very beginning, they are just completely off, right? So let's start with your actual skit here and how do you ignore I apologize, my handwriting's awful. I'm gonna try to keep it as neat as possible, but how do you actually start your skits, right? So the very first thing is you should be keeping in your mind is, again, even with skits, you need to have a hook. So one of the biggest mistakes is in the first 3 seconds, there should be some sort of hook, right? One of the biggest mistakes is people will start their skit and there's going to be 2 to 3 seconds of dead space, right? So one of the most common ways to start your skits is you start walking into the frame and then you start speaking to the person who's unaware. That's a big mistake in the same way as if you're making a normal talking video on TikTok Shop. If you are there's 3 seconds of dead space before you start speaking, well, people are going to automatically be disinterested, right? So in the first 3 seconds, you got to have a hook and the speech, the actual action of the conversation needs to get started in the first 3 seconds, right? Now from there, one of the most important pieces of skits is actually the area that you are filming. So for example, if you are promoting, just a random example here, if you are promoting a sleep supplement, do you probably want to be promoting that sleep supplement in the gym? No, it's obviously an extreme example, but think of where you're actually filming. Again, you're trying to put people in the place that would be natural for this conversation to happen, right? Whatever that may be, whether that's in the house, whether that's in the actual car. You want to think of the scene of the skit itself. Now, the next most important part is you want people to feel like they're being dropped in to the middle of a conversation, right? So in the middle of a conversation, it's not, oh, hey, how's it going? That goes back to the first 3 seconds. You've got to hook people in. So you got to have the environment. The environment is super important to the actual skit itself. Now, the other element of this is actually on the on-screen text. In the same way that on-screen text is really important for other videos, if you don't have an on-screen text that's relevant to the topic of what you're talking about, nobody's going to care. So for example, if you are filming a skit for a sleep supplement, and even if you're not in a bedroom or if you're somewhere random, you need to be able to draw people in based on that on-screen text, because that's going to tell people, hey, should I even be watching this in the first place? And this goes back to the concept of speak to the people that you're trying to speak to. You want to be crystal clear who this video is about. For example, if it's something around sleep and you have an on-screen text of she fell asleep in 30 seconds? Question mark. So if she fell asleep in 30 seconds, now instantly, right away, people are going to read that and know, okay, is this interesting to me in the first place? If they're not going to think it's funny, or they're not even going to be interested in terms of sleep, or they're going to scroll away, and that's perfectly fine, right? What a lot of people do with skits, I've seen this is a real example of somebody, they were like moaning into the camera for the first 10 seconds. You're not going to convert. You're going to be drawing in the wrong audience, right? And so with TikTok especially, everything is extrapolated to the extreme. So if you are bringing in a couple people who are laughing because of the moaning in the first 5 seconds of the video, now you're going to get more and more styles of consumers who are going to be interested in that style of content where it's just a big joke. They have no interest in actually buying anything. So just because it's a skit and it needs to be entertaining and seem like a real conversation, in the first 3 seconds, you got to have the right background. You got to have a relevant on-screen text, and you need to actually get right into the conversation. Now, when we get into the actual part of the skit, let's move down here. So how do you actually start, and what is the framework, right? The biggest mistake that a lot of people make when they start doing skits is they get into it too quickly. And eventually I'm going to write down kind of a framework that you can follow for skits, but a lot of people get into it too quickly. What do I mean by that? Well, when you actually start doing some of these skits, you like introduce the product right away. It screams an advertisement like the second that you introduce it. So what you don't want is, again, your on-screen text, she fell asleep in 30 seconds. And what do you know? It's like you're going up to your girlfriend or somebody or whatever, and you're like, she fell asleep, and then you just like, oh, she took these. That's what a lot of people do with skits, right? So what you want to do is you want to have a hook. Again, everything that I talk about, you should be talking about problems first, but you're going to have your hook around something around the conversation, in general. So if it's the concept of, is she took sleep gummies and she fell asleep in 30 seconds, you could start with a hook of, you're going up to your girlfriend or somebody and just like really subtly saying, we were supposed to watch a movie. So supposed to watch a movie. So again, a lot of people are going to go, oh, they're going to just pan to the sleep gummies sitting right beside her. Instead, what you want to do is you want to really drag it out. Again, you want to bring up that watch time. Make it seem like a natural conversation. So then from there, you can just be like, shake the person awake. Like, what are you doing? You fell asleep. Oh, I didn't even realize. Like, what happened? Like, what do you mean you've had issues with falling asleep? So hook, you want to have something relevant in terms of the actual concept, right? So again, sleep gummies. What are things that, people are having trouble falling asleep? People are falling asleep too quickly. What are situations where you could be falling asleep, i.e. watching a movie, right? So then the concept of the skit is, oh, this person's watching a movie, but she never falls asleep or he never falls asleep during a movie. What changed? Well, they took the product. Hey guys, real quick, I know I'm talking specifically about skits here. If you want to make a ton of money on TikTok Shop, one of the biggest things that I always tell people is you have to get good at all the styles of content. So I'm going pretty in depth here on skits specifically. And honestly, this is a small piece of what you need to actually make a ton of money as a TikTok Shop affiliate. So this is one of the main things that I go over in the mentorship program specifically. What are the actual frameworks for all these scripts? So a lot of people, when they're doing talking head, which is just your normal talking video on TikTok Shop, even a couple other styles of content that I see no one else doing and consistently is a staple for me and all of my students in my program. And I think it's funny, the number of students who for their first viral video has gone viral for this other style of content is higher than anything else, higher than talking head, higher than skits. So it's really cool to see. But if you guys want to actually see how I'm going in depth on all of these styles of content, you can actually click the link to apply for the mentorship program. Again, it's for people specifically who want to take it to the next level on TikTok Shop. Whether you're spinning your wheels, you can't even get to $1,000, $5,000 per month, or if you're trying to get to 10, 20K plus per month, it's the principles behind why all these things are working. So this YouTube video specifically is kind of the psychological things behind actual skits. But when you learn the psychological reasons behind all these other styles of content, you're able to become a much more dangerous affiliate. And that's really part of the piece of the puzzle as to how you get to that next level. So if you want to be handheld, if you want to get the actual information and be able to apply it right away, so to get you to where you want to be quicker on TikTok Shop, you're going to get one-on-one calls with me. You're going to get one-on-one calls with my team. You're going to get weekly calls. You will have literally everything you could possibly need in front of your face to succeed in a quick period of time on TikTok Shop. Now, I'm not going to sit here and make any guarantees, but I have had multiple students in their first full month do 5K a month, 10K their very first full month in the program, even after having not made a single dollar on TikTok Shop before. So if you do want to apply for that, you can click the link in the description. But anyways, back to the video. So in general, the framing of the actual video has to be relevant. The hook has to be getting right into it. So the statement and the on-screen text are going to be relevant to the concept of the video. And this is the most important part here. Drag it out. Nobody should really understand of what you're getting to until you actually are ready for it, right? So again, most skits are going to be around 30 to 45 seconds, and you really want to drag it out till you like make it should feel painfully slow. Like, what do you mean? What you're always falling, it's always taking you an hour plus to fall asleep. What do you mean? I don't know. Oh my gosh, well, I completely forgot. I took these sleep gummies, right? And now the most important part is when you start talking about it, everybody starts getting into sales mode. And you do not want to get into sales mode because again, this is supposed to mimic a natural conversation. So if you watch your skit back and you're like, oh, so I started taking these sleep gummies. No, you'd be like, oh, I don't know, I got something the other day. Like, what do you mean you got? I got these like gummies or whatever. Like gummies? Are they like, are you supposed to take them? No, they like help you sleep or whatever. Oh, what are they? And then you like naturally find a way to go get them, right? So you want to, as close as you can, mimic a real conversation, right? So if somebody asks you a question like, what have you been doing to fall asleep? Oh, I've been taking these sleep gummies right here. That's not natural. It's like, oh yeah, I've been taking these sleep gummies. Oh, what sleep gummies do you get? I mean, I can't fall asleep myself to save my life. Oh, let me show you real quick. Oh, this is the brand that I got. And then you start actually actually selling the product. Now, the most important part is now towards the end, we really drug out the problems, and now we want to talk about the actual solution. Now, usually your skit's going to be anywhere from 30 to 45 seconds long, maybe a minute or so. I think a lot of mine are around like 45 seconds to a minute that I do with my grandma. But when you actually start getting to the solution, now you do need to have the actual principles of selling the solution. Once you've earned the right to sell the product, then you can consistently bring that up. So when you talk about the solution, you want to hit the points of why this one, and then you want to add some sort of reason as to indicate why people should even click the link in the first place. So for example, you want to have some sort of mechanism, right? So again, that situation, why this one? You want to have why this one, why people need to do it right now. And now that's where you can typically get into the actual sales mode. So that's the framework of a skit. Again, it's going to be hook. You want to talk about problems, drag it out, curiosity, problems/curiosity. I know I'm going to 8 million comments about my handwriting, but that's okay. Hook, problems, curiosity, and then you want to slowly introduce it. Introduce, and then at the very end, now is your time to actually sell and call to action and really wrap up this whole conversation. So again, if you're going to take anything away from this video, you really want to think of, okay, how do I make this mimic a real conversation as much as possible? And what you got to be wary of is, again, if it's something ridiculous, if you're doing something like moaning, or you're just not from the very beginning drawing in the right audience, it's going to, expand 10 times worse throughout the rest of the video, right? So the main thing that a lot of these skits that do well have in common is they seem somewhat like a natural conversation, and you're not really just sold on it right away. You're just like dragging out this concept where it's like, what is going on? The viewer has to know. And one of the biggest things that I hear with skits as to why people that don't do them is, I wouldn't buy from them. I actually just heard this on a coaching call the other day. Somebody's like, I personally wouldn't buy from them. But again, the numbers are there. Skits do convert. Now, me, again, personally, would I ever buy off a skit? Probably not. I don't know who would, but there are people that are buying a lot of things on TikTok Shop off of skits because it mimics some sort of real conversation that they could personally have in their life. So the more relatable that you make it, the more relatable problems that you're speaking to, the easier it is to actually get them to sell, or to rather buy something from your actual skit. So implement these on your next skits. They're going to convert 10 times better. Get over the uncomfortable part of, oh, I don't really know if somebody can do it. Figure it out. There's going to be somebody that's willing. You can have them behind the camera, whoever it is. They don't even have to be in front of the camera, and you can be the actual one on the focal point of the skit. And that's how a lot of skits are done on TikTok Shop, and you should definitely implement it because it's one of the highest converting types of videos if you do it properly.